Welcome back to IGN Live from Gamescom in Germany. Our final demo of the day is Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, I don't mind telling you, at IGN, this is one of our most anticipated games.
Oh, it's been amazing. We've been looking at the Rewind Theater stuff. Was so cool.
Yeah. We've got a lot of big Tolkien fans in the office, actually. So what do we get to see today?
Today we're actually going to show a little bit of the Nemesis system again. We're going to show because every time we show that, something different's going to happen we haven't seen before. And also, I guess, talk about some of the stuff we've revealed at Gamescom. And plus, this is the first time we've ever been able to let fans and players get their hands on the game. So
getting a good reaction?
It's amazing. It's really fun.
Okay. So we'll jump into the gameplay here. Do you want to start off explaining the Nemesis system?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we've got this big, overarching, epic story of Celebrimbor, an elf from the Second Age, and Sauron and their history and the forging of the Rings of Power. But then we also want to enable players to create these very personal stories of their own enemies, create their own villains and their own stories within the world. So it's really a whole group of features that come together to create your own unique villains every single time you play the game. So every time we show it, every time someone plays it, they're always going to see a new set of guys. Like, we'll see people now we haven't seen before. I think like the three keys to that: one, there's no generic cannon fodder in the game. Like, any enemy in the world can get experience, can get promoted. And
that's one of the most interesting aspects to me. Your enemies might carry a grudge.
That's number two is they remember. And they remember, and then the next time you see them, they'll call back to that. So there's thousands upon thousands of VO lines covering all of these different situations that could arise and so on. So that took a huge amount of work. We actually had one of our writers on that was Dan Abnett, who was the writer of Guardians of the Galaxy, like the comics and stuff. So we really put a lot into that VO. And then the third thing is how we handle death. So of course, normally you die in a game, we reset time, pretend it didn't happen, do the same thing again. But because you're a Wraith, because Celebrimbor is giving you a lot of the same powers that we see from the Nazgul, who are wearing the rings that he created, time doesn't reset when you die, it moves forward and the world evolves. So you've got these, any enemy in the world can become a boss. They remember and react and grow, and time moves forward when you die. So kind of all three of those things come together to make this sort of central feature of the game.
Is this, what were we just watching? Is this the beginning of the game?
That was the beginning of the game. So that's Galadriel introducing some of the context of our story. So we begin within Mordor, where thousands of years earlier Sauron was defeated on the slopes of Mount Doom. And since that time, Gondor's been guarding the borders of Mordor. The Rangers have been on the wall at the Black Gates. But after 2,000 years, they're completely unprepared for Sauron's return.
Tell me about the main character that we play as is a ranger who gets killed, right?
Well, the thing is, it's interesting because you actually really do play as these two characters. So there's Talion, who is a ranger. He's one of the rangers that was on the gates. And he's killed, but he's not allowed to stay dead. He's dragged back from death by the other character who you play, who we reveal to be Celebrimbor, who is one of the most important characters in the history of Middle-earth, because he forged, alongside with Sauron, he forged the Rings of Power, and the rings that the Nazgul wear, and gives you many of the same powers that they have, that ability to defy death, to terrify and dominate your enemies. So he's almost imposing on you to be a Wraith the way those rings, dominate the Nazgul.
So here we're in the gameplay here.
So this is taking place, this is sort of then a long way from the Black Gate. This is far deeper into Mordor, and it's the Sea of Nirn. So, Sauron obviously has these vast armies he's just beginning to build, and this is the lusher part of Mordor that enables him to feed those armies. So there's slaves tilling the fields. So that makes it a really perfect place for you to get behind enemy lines and to actually mess with his war machine.
And Mordor is not going to look like it did in the movies, right? Like, it's not a barren wasteland yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's the two things. It's like Mordor is almost kind of a microcosm of what will happen in all of Middle-earth if Sauron wins. You know, so we see what the land looks like after thousands of years of Sauron being away, but we also see it kind of transforming into what it's going to become as well.
And here we're looking at
this is what we call the army screen, and this is kind of the heart of the Nemesis system. This is where you can see all of your different unique enemies. This is one of the war chiefs. So this is Hawk the Raven. Obviously never met this guy before. And the things to look out for as you're looking at them, there's their power, which they earn as they get promoted. Gives you an idea how tough they are, but also what rewards they'll drop if they're killed. Ugu, you can see this guy's the butcher. So they kind of multitask. So he's probably the battlefield surgeon as well as being responsible for the cooking. And we can see Marku, the disgusting, who kind of looks like he's earned that name. He's a berserker, got these twin cleavers. But these guys get into this position by backstabbing and betraying and slaughtering each other. And that makes them very, very paranoid. So you can't just find them wandering in the world. You actually have to challenge them and draw them out into combat. So, and then early in the game, when you do that, you can just kill them to weaken Sauron's army. But later, as Celebrimbor's power grows, you can do more. You can actually dominate and bend these guys to your will. So I'm not actually sure if Ryan can hear me, or sorry, Evan, I should say, and follow what I'm doing, or we're just going to react to what's going on.
We should probably just react to him.
Yeah. So those lines from the war chiefs coming down, they indicate his bodyguards. So he also has followers. They're just waiting to replace him if they get their chance and he dies. The guy with the shadows that we don't know about, we haven't learned who they are yet, so you have to gather intel, interrogate your enemies to learn about them, as well as to learn their strengths and weaknesses. So you really also want players to be able to control their own difficulty, rather than just going back to the menu, hitting easy or hard. Within the game, if you want a really tough challenge, you can go straight after a war chief, take on him and his bodyguards at once. If you want to make it easier, or he's proving too tough, you can wear him down by defeating his bodyguards, turning them against him, using his weaknesses. Really want it to be very, very dynamic, have a lot of choices for the player.
Yeah. Is that the map in the upper right corner showing you where you can find them?
Yeah, so that map up there, that's the map of the zone that you're in this case Nirn. And each area that you're in has its own army, its own hierarchy. So, and you can travel back and forth between those as you kind of take these guys on. So now Evan's marked Lamul Frogblood as his target, and he's going to go and try, I think, and take him on. And now we're in the open world, and we can also see there's other named enemies or captains just living there in the world. We haven't gained intel on Amug the Whiner yet, so we don't know his strengths and weaknesses. But we can see the red icon on the mini-map. That's a power struggle. They're the different missions that the orcs are actually creating for themselves within their society. And as well, we can see the golden icons. They represent the war chiefs we need to defeat, and our current kind of marked target. So there, Amug the Whiner is going to live up to his name and his personality, and he's not too happy about having to have this sort of showdown. Oh, there's actually a Graug, one of the monsters down there. So, and by defeating these guys, as you wear them down, he's now got the green icon over his head. So he's weakened enough that we can now use our raid powers and actually dominate him, bend him to our will, and make him part of our armies once we can clear out some of these other guys. And then once we do that, that allows us to give him orders, actually create other missions in the sandbox. So we can either use him to get intel, learn the strengths and weaknesses of other guys, or command him and send him off. And now this screen really becomes a mission creator, because any one of these other captains and bosses here we can send him against. So he's now going to try and stab his master in the back if we send him to that, or he's going to try and become a bodyguard of another one of the war chiefs. Or he can just try and if he wasn't tough enough, you can actually send him on duels and things against other captains, farm him up, he'll become more powerful. And there's no limit to the number of these guys you can bend to your will.
I see. Can you use your Wraith powers at will?
Some of them you can. So, and you can actually, it's almost like you're feeding on the fear of your enemies. You can drain your Wraith power from your enemies, from the orcs. You can use them at will. Some of them are balanced on time. Like if you want to grab someone and dominate them until that's finished, you can be knocked out of that if another guy attacks you. And of course, Celebrimbor, as an elf, is an extremely powerful archer. So the ammunition that he needs, that also fuels some of his powers as well. But this being able to jump on a mount and dominate these beasts, once you've unlocked that, you can do that at will. So these creatures that are really dangerous at the start of the game really become tools in your toolbox as you grow in power.
You also revealed this week that Golem's in the game.
Yep.
Right? It's very cool.
Yeah, he's really great. The thing about Golem, so of course we've got Talion and Celebrimbor on this journey, but Golem's relationship to those guys is, I think in some ways it's really similar to his relationship with Sam and Frodo later that we see in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So Celebrimbor really has something in common with Frodo. He's trying to resist this corruption of power. He's on this epic journey to kind of have this showdown with the Dark Lord. And sort of Golem has this, almost worships him in the same way he does Frodo as his master, whereas Talion really has, and I think this kind of came to life a bit with Troy's performance of Talion and really grounding that. He almost has something more in common with Sam. He would much rather have just been left alone, left at home, having a nice warm dinner with his family, but he's been dragged into this kind of epic quest against his will. So the kind of triangle of that relationship of Talion, played by Troy, and Celebrimbor with Alistair, and Golem brought to life by Liam, I think is really sort of the heart of the story.
Have you revealed what Golem looks like yet? Have we seen Golem yet in the game?
Yeah, we have. So Liam O'Brien was the actor, and obviously Golem is such an incredibly iconic character, and he just did an amazing job, I think, of bringing that to life. And as soon as you see that, you're just so grounded and kind of immersed in this as Middle Earth. He's amazing.
All right, what's happening here?
Okay, so I've been looking away, so I've got to. So here we are. We're deep within one of the orc strongholds. So War Chief's actually been drawn out, and the blue icon, that is the orc that Evan branded earlier. So he's now fighting on our side against his master. Whoa. And that exploding arrow, actually the War Chief trying to defend himself actually just blew himself up. So
that worked out well for us.
It did indeed. Okay. Oh, lucky shot. Actually, I didn't check before. It could well have been him that blew the other guy up. But anyway, Loomlug Frogblood, that's the end of him. And now Amug the Whiner, who is our follower, has moved up into that position of War Chief.
But none of that is scripted, right? Like this
no,
is just,
nothing.
This is just your game.
Exactly. It's a really fun. And now Amug needs to fight for his life as well and sort of see off all of these other orcs. So, that's sort of flipping from now you're trying to destroy these guys to now you're trying to protect them and build your army. It's really fun. It's almost like, in some ways, the second half of the game almost feels like the sequel to the first half, because you're just getting used to all the mechanics and the action of it in this very personal, sort of intense action game, and then it really changes up the dynamic because all of these strategic choices and options kind of open up once we get here. The headshot. And then once you're within these strongholds, things can get really crazy, because thanks to obviously the power of next gen, we can really have quite significant numbers of enemies on screen. Let's see how this works out. So this guy, he's actually recoiling in fear.
Is the goal to clear out the stronghold?
At the beginning, the goal is to clear out the orc leadership. Later, the goal becomes to actually build your army so that you can take them against the Black Captains, who are the main villains. The last video released was kind of that story trailer of those guys. So then, as well as all of these orcs, we also have these tentpole villains who are Sauron's main henchmen, sort of his main bodyguards that are leading the whole sort of reoccupation of Mordor, because it's a big part. One of my favorite lines in the appendices of Lord of the Rings is it's talking about the Black Speech, and it says that Sauron tried to get all the orcs speaking the Black Speech, which I think just really speaks to, he's not totally omnipotent, and these orcs aren't totally obedient. You know, they have to be tamed and dominated and controlled as well, and that's really the Black Captain's job, to come in and impose Sauron's will throughout Mordor on these guys as well. Might get to show, see how, depending on how crazy things get, we might get to show death as well, and how the sort of world evolves after you die. I'm not sure if
At Comic-Con recently, did you guys unveil a new wraith? Is that what you unveiled?
Yeah, so that was when we were really torn about that in a lot of ways, because we unveiled the identity of the wraith as being Celebrimbor, and it was really because he's such an important part of the game, and he's such an important part of the lore and the story of Middle-earth, that sort of going in and playing the game with that context of who he is, I think just makes the whole story even richer. And then even after you learn who he is, of course, then we get into the twists and turns of our specific story and his revenge against Sauron.
I see.
Oh, he's going to die. I wish... Okay, so now the other thing we could just see on the right there, having defeated him, that's the runes. So every time you defeat one of these Nemesis enemies, they're going to drop one of these runes, and these you can use to customize and craft and upgrade your weapons as well. Oh, he's down. Maybe he'll die. Okay, so he's going to get mauled to death here. And as I say, what's going to happen now is, until he's resurrected at one of the Forge Towers, time's going to move forward, so we'll see all the power struggles resolve in the Orc Society. So the guys that he's killed, the power struggles, the promotions, and then next time he meets them, they're going to remember all of those encounters as well.
I see. Now, Shadow of Mordor is one of those rare games that it was moved up. It wasn't delayed. The release date was actually moved up recently, so now it's coming out September 30th. I think so,
And then October 2nd in Europe. So we're super excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited too. Like I said, this is IGN's one of our most anticipated games. So Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For bringing us
really
the update. It's looking great.
Thanks a lot.
That's it for day one from us here, IGN Live at Gamescom, presented by Dead Island 2. But tomorrow, make sure you come back at the same time. We'll have many more game demos to show you, lots more big games. Everybody get a good night's sleep. Come back well rested tomorrow. We'll see you then.